What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Micah McCamey, and today we are going to be breaking down Brian Callahan's first press conference. Now, I know that I'm a little late on this subject, so you're just going to have to stick with me, but, I'm really excited about it, and also I am abandoning the segment where I just kind of got to put up the Derrick Henry card, obviously, but I am not going to try. I'm going to try an episode where I only talk about the Titans and not have that section where I just don't talk about the Titans. So, anyway, let's get right on into today's episode, starting out with the first subject. Now, something that I have been thinking about recently was there was this one former player of Mr. Mike Vrabel. His name was what was his name again? Oh yeah, Wesley Woodyard. Now Wesley Woodyard, he was a great linebacker for the Titans, honestly. Like he did maybe not a great linebacker, but he was a decent linebacker, did some solid things, was a respected veteran in the locker room. But then Vrabel feels like that he needs to move on from him, so he drafts Rashaan Evans. Okay, you get that. That stuff happens all the time, especially to veterans who are decent, but they're not like good to great, Like that happens to veterans all the time. But anyway, so now there's this controversy coming out. Wesley Woodyard hopped on 104.5, The Zone, I believe it is called. By the way, that was a great interview whenever I listened to it. Like it was honestly really good, but anyway, moving on. So, Wesley Woodyard had some things to say about the Vrabel culture. And I obviously know, you should know too, that some of this stuff is just him talking out of a place of anger because he was replaced by Vrabel, and it's probably some of his veteran stuff. But there were like specific stories, like how with how he got into an argument with Dean Pease, like it was something minor, and then he apologizes to the people that are to the defense, and then they're saying that they always have his back, and it's starting to become a bonding moment. Then Vrabel bursts through the door. I knocked it over. Um, then Vrabel bursts through the door. He goes in and he takes that little pointy thingy. You know what I'm talking about? That little thing that they use to point out like specific things on film. Like, dude, you gotta have more respect for your older coaches, especially one that has been respected across the NFL for the past, I don't know, like 10, 15 years, probably. Like, have some respect for that dude. Like, and then he ended up taking away play calling duties away from him in the second half of the AFC Championship game, and the defense fell apart. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. But let me try to remember something else. Oh yeah, like about how he wouldn't let other players have their kids in the locker room, but he would bring his kids into the locker room. It's just stuff like that that's just a little irritating, And as a player myself, if I was told, like, as an adult, if I was told, hey, you're not allowed to bring your kids in the locker room, at first I would be like, okay, fair enough, don't want to be too distracted, want to keep focused on what we're doing right now. But Vrabel would bring his own kids into the locker room, and then I would be like, okay, this is ridiculous. Now, granted, he did later change that rule, and that is something that he was at least able to point out and be like, hey, maybe I was wrong on that. And then also, Wesley Woodyard had more praise for Malarkey and the way that he built the culture than what Vrabel did before Vrabel was hired. Like, it's stuff like that that's just like a little questionable, like, was Vrabel ever really that good of a head coach that everybody was just like, wow, he's a mastermind? Or was he just riding off of the hype of the Malarkey culture? So I found this interview very interesting, and if I can, I will leave a link in the description for that part of the show. But I want to know what you got after you guys click on that link, because I hope y'all will at least. I want to know what your thoughts are. Like, what did you think of the Wesley Woodyard interview? Because honestly, I think that there's a little bit of a mix. Like, I think the Dean Pease story is true. I think the kids in the locker room story is true. Like, and I believe that Mike Malarkey building up a real culture before Vrabel got there was also true. But I don't believe in some of the stuff that he said, like how he would completely overwork veteran players. But I did also believe whenever he said that apparently Vrabel walked in and just completely trashed Malarkey and told the veterans, you're not going to have any everybody starting on ground one, which was a little ridiculous to me, but you know, that's fine. But anyway, now we get to talk about the rest of this episode, which will be dedicated to the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. We're not here with the national media still hooked on the idea that Vrabel still hasn't been hired by some miracle. It's not like he's hard to work with or anything. No, we're not hooked on that. We are hooked on the idea that Brian Callahan is the new guy and that he is better for our team and our organization in general. So let's talk about his press conference, because there was a lot to like. And I am first off going to say I am in love with Brian Callahan. Overall, this was a great press conference. He was very mature for a 39-year-old. And oh yeah, also he's kind of an attractive dude, I'm not going to lie. But it was the maturity that really just got me excited, because he was just he was calm, he was complex, and that's just something that you look for in a head coach. Also, he really likes Will Levis. Like, he was stressing that a lot during that interview. And honestly, that's probably one of the reasons that he got hired, is because he liked Will Levis. He had good chemistry with Rand Carthen. Like, those three things being mixed together are quite amazing. Oh yeah, also I want to mention this real quick. I feel like that the Titans are starting to form the entire Manning family, which I just find kind of funny. Like, not as in like the Manning family themselves, but like people that have worked with the Manning family. Like, Rand Carthen played with Peyton. I believe it was on the Colts. It may have been the Broncos. Don't quote me on that. Or he may have not played with him and he was just a manager wherever Peyton was at one point. But I know that he somehow has relations with Peyton. Then Brian Callahan was the quarterback's coach for Peyton Manning. And then also, Will Levis has good connections with the Mannings because he went to the passing academy and really impressed. Like, there are three dudes that are involved with the roster right now that have really good connections with Peyton Manning. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, Micah, Adam Gase also had great connections with the Manning family, and that's how he kept on getting job after job after job. But I also want to remind you that Adam Gase, even though he got attention from the Manning family and was a driving force towards why he kept on getting these jobs, let's also talk about that he's the reason that Shane Steichen got hired to Indianapolis, who would have probably ended up winning Coach of the Year if they would have beat DeMeco Ryans in that first round of not the first round of the playoffs, but in that winner go home thing, which granted it was Shane Steichen's fault. Don't get me wrong. He should have, put someone out there that he can truly trust and not some random third stringer. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So I really like how much he likes Will Levis. Also, he seems like he is player friendly, honestly. Like, he talked a lot about how he wants to teach his players, he wants to adapt to his players. He talked a lot about how, there are some things that he can do. Like, he didn't say anything about like the O-line being like, oh yeah, well, obviously everyone is going to be held to the same standard whenever we get here, because if he would have said that, that's code for, hey, our O-line sucks and we need to, wipe out the entire thing, because that's not the truth, Like, it's not that's not true, The truth is that there are some spots on that O-line that are really good, and there are some spots on that O-line that are really bad. Daniel Brunskill may not be the best right guard that you've ever seen, but he's decent. Peter Skronsky, keeps on showing flashes as a potential franchise guard. Dylan Radins had a very good second half of the year whenever he came back. Maybe not very good, but solid. And also, maybe we could just move him to right guard and let him take Brunskill's spot. We go out and get a free agent right tackle. We draft the left tackle. The O-line can be fixed, and I think that's what he was hinting at, honestly, because, there are very easy ways to fix this O-line, and Brian Callahan, I believe, sees that, and he's not just going to straight up say, our O-line is trash, they need to get out of here. Obviously, you're not going to say that in an interview, but, anyway, so he was also there was a part of me that made me feel like that he truly does care about this, just by the raw emotion that he brought whenever he was first saying that speech about how grateful he was to be the Tennessee Titans head coach. He was crying. He was just reminiscing about Zach Taylor, his dad, and how all these people had came along to help him in the NFL. And he has 14 years of experience in the NFL. He got his first coaching, apparently. Well, I think that it was 14 years. I may be completely wrong. But he was 25 whenever he got his first job. He was raised in the NFL, and then he ended up getting into the NFL as a coach when he was 25. That's wild. He has more experience than any of the other offensive coordinator candidates. Now, may the other offensive coordinator candidates have bigger potential? Sure, I get that. Ben Johnson probably has more potential than he does. Bobby Slowick may have more potential than he does. But the difference between those guys is that Brian Callahan is going to bring results faster, and he is going to be better throughout his first 2 years. I'm booking that right now. All right? Because Bobby Slowick, I'm not too sure where he's going to go. He's probably not going to go anywhere this year, and he's probably going to wait until next year. But he is going to end up, he's going to end up somewhere within the next 2 or 3 years. That's just certain. I can guarantee you that he's going to be somewhere within the next 2 or 3 years. And he is going to be one of those guys that learns on the job as the seasons progress, and that's a guy that's going to require a lot of patience. Ben Johnson is going to come in. He's probably going to have, I think that he's going to have a rough first year, but he's really going to get it on in year 2. And I think that he has the most potential out of all the dudes, but I still think that Brian Callahan will end up being the best for the next 2 to 3 years, and he may end up being the best out of all of them. We'll see. Maybe Ben Johnson isn't all that he's stoked up to be. Maybe he's just a really good offensive coordinator that was really bad as a head coach. We never know. And we never know about Callahan either, but I am more confident in Callahan ending up being a good head coach than I am someone like Ben Johnson, who has never had any type of experience, even getting close to the experience that Mr. Brian Callahan has. So that's just my opinion on that. Anyway, I got carried away with the sentimental thing. Okay, I'm going to try and speed through the rest of these, but all right. So he will call the plays. He confirmed that in the press conference. And I know that there are a lot of people that are worried about this. My brother's worried about this. The fact that he didn't play call in Cincinnati. But here's the thing. I am here to provide you the research that I have done to where inside sources have talked about how Brian Callahan used to actually practice play calling with Zach Taylor. He also ended up he practiced play calling with Zach Taylor, and he man, I'm blanking right now. But he also man, he would practice play calling. He would be the one to come up with the offensive game plan. He was the one with the offense. Well, maybe not the offensive scheme, but he was the one to come up with the game plan. He was the one that Taylor would run through with the play calls. Like, I'm just telling you, like, even though he didn't call plays, he was kind of calling plays within he was calling some of the shots within the organization, and he's prepared. He's ready to take on that challenge of being a head coach. Anyway, so also, if you notice from the behind the scenes stuff, he has great chemistry with Rand Carthen. And while I'm talking about Rand Carthen, he dropped a bombshell of a quote that I absolutely loved. He said, "Hunting at the same time is not the same as hunting together." Now, obviously, that's also, like, obviously that could be considered kind of a shot at Mike Vrabel, obviously, but, like, you know, it's also just, like, a sentiment towards these guys do plan on collaborating together and working through problems within the front office together. It's not just going to be like one of the guys is just like, oh, it's going to be me. No, it's going to be me. It's going to be, it's not going to be a big old power struggle like it was whenever Vrabel was head coach. Like, it's just going to be balanced, and it's going to be collective, it's just going to be connective love. But anyway, also, again, like I said earlier, he's professional, and he carries himself like he is way older than a 39-year-old. Also, from what he said in the interview, it doesn't sound like that he's trying to go after Bill Callahan, but then I've also heard sources say that he will be trying to go after his dad, but it's really confusing right now, because, it seemed like that he was hinting towards, I'm not too sure if I can get my dad because he's under contract and whatnot. But, I would be fine if he didn't end up coming to the Tennessee Titans, honestly, because we have an offensive line coach in the wings waiting for us. Like, we can go get Mike Munchak if we want to, as an offensive line coach, not as head coach. Trust me, we tried that. It did not work, to say the least. But, I will say this. I would be really happy to just have him as an assistant head coach. He can help guide his son through the struggles of being an NFL coach. There's that. Also, he's already talked to Will Levis as well. He has chemistry with he's already developed somewhat of a chemistry with Will Levis already, which is, just great to see from your new head coach. Also, he talked a lot about the offense and the passing game. He talked about striving for balance. If you remember, last year, we did not strive for balance, to say the least. Do you remember what happened against the Texans the first time that we played them? I was there. I was in the nosebleeds because I was with the high school football team, state champions, by the way. But anyway, I was with the football team, and we stubbornly ran the ball so much. And Derrick Henry had one of the worst games rushing-wise in NFL history. And we didn't change anything. But it's great now that we get to have a coach that, may end up striving for balance and not being like, we're just going to run it down into their throats. By the way, Derrick Henry's stat line was 20 carries for 10 yards. That's negative 2 yards a carry. That's ridiculous. So, almost as bad. Anyway, so, it's just, I am very excited to see what a balanced offense looks like, as you can tell. But anyway, he wants the idea of just relentlessness and ferocity, the stuff that Vrabel implanted into his culture, but he's not going to do his coaching the Vrabel way. he's going to be more player friendly about it. Like, he could be like a Dan Campbell potentially. Like, I know that I talk a lot about Dan Campbell, but it's because I love the dude. He's one of my favorite head coaches in the entire NFL. But, like, he could be that type of dude that is, like, obviously Dan Campbell isn't like 100% player friendly, but he's more player friendly than Vrabel ever was. That's just the 100% truth. All right? And also, I'm going to end on this. I am very excited to not have to watch this offense stay in the 1980s and just be like, run the ball, exotic smash mouth. And I'm excited for our head coach to not be deemed a leader of men, which is a quote I have grown tired of because of how much they've talked about it with Vrabel, which is just so, like, I get it, Vrabel, all right? Good coach, but people are treating him like he's Andy Reid or Bill Belichick. Or heck, they're even treating him like he's John Harbaugh or both of the Harbaughs. He's not. His ego will always get the best of him, no matter what. Even if he does have a good roster, like if he keeps on trying to stay old school, it's not going to work out. Like he's going to have like his first few years are going to be great with another NFL team if he ends up going somewhere else. But then he's going to slowly go downhill because he's so wrapped up in that philosophy. Okay, so I'm going to calm down a little bit, but this is going to wrap up today's episode. I have Instagram, I have YouTube for people that are listening on podcasting services, and I have Twitter, and did I already say Instagram? Or am I just losing my mind? It was Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and oh yeah, TikTok. I have a TikTok as well. So if y'all want to go check that out, then go ahead and do so. But anyway, that's going to do it all for me. This has been a rundown of the press conference of Mr. Brian Callahan. I love y'all, and tighten up.